Hey, 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 I'm back. It's the Comics Kid 2099 with part 2 of my movies and TV show collection. Right here in front of the TV, I have the box sets of TV shows that I haven't finished watching yet. This is Lois and Clark Season 2. I just bought that about a little more than a week ago. Then I have Dark Angel Season 1. I've watched about 6 episodes of that show, maybe a little less. I did not care for what I saw, and so it's just making it very hard for me to finish off that season. But I'd like to finish watching that season someday. Then I have Season 4 of The Pretender and the 2 TV movies that came after that series. This is a show that I remember watching when I was a kid. We got all 4 seasons, and as the show progressed, I think I became less and less interested in it. So I've watched maybe 3 or 4 episodes of this season, and I just kind of I lost interest in it. But I'll definitely get back into it to finish off that series and then those 2 TV movies. Then over here, I have some movies that I bought on the same day that I bought Lois and Clark Season 2. Dark City. I've never seen this before, but I've heard good things, so we'll see. And then actually I didn't buy this, but I remember liking this when it came on. It's Timothy Hutton, and it's called 5 Days to Midnight. It's a time travel type thing. It's a 5-night miniseries, so if you're into that kind of thing, then maybe you can check it out. It's been so long since I've seen it, it may not hold up nearly as well now. I don't know. Again, I'm only going to be talking about the movies that are mine or movies that I really enjoy. And so that means we have the Ghostbusters films. I grew up with both of those films. I know some people, they really only like the first film and they don't like the second one. I might have had that too if I hadn't grown up with both of them at the same time. So for me, they kind of meld together. I enjoy them both, but I definitely understand why people only like the first one more. I like them both, though. And then over here we have a couple of James Bond movies, 2 of them. I didn't buy either of these, but Goldfinger is my favorite James Bond movie. With James Bond, I feel like you've seen one, you've seen them all, and so I don't really have any desire to seek out more of those movies and buy them to add to this collection. The Goonies, another one of my bread and butter movies. I really love this film. I've heard people say it's one of those movies that you really need to see it when you're younger, and then you'll enjoy it when you're an adult. I don't know if that's true because I did see it when I was younger, and I do enjoy it now. The Great Mouse Detective. That's one that I used to watch when I was a kid. I haven't seen it in years, but I really loved it when I was a kid. I want to watch that again someday soon. And then here's several that are mine. The Green Hornet. I enjoyed that movie. And it wasn't Othello or anything like that. It was just a fun little B-list comedy movie. That was enough for me. I thought it was enjoyable. I wasn't going in expecting The Dark Knight, and so I enjoyed what I got. Then we have 2 animated Green Lantern movies. We have First Flight and Emerald Knights. I am not a Green Lantern fan. I do not care for the characters, really, or in many of the stories, but these 2 films, I enjoyed both of them. I haven't seen First Flight in a while, but I enjoyed Emerald Knights, and I only watched it a couple months ago, despite not being much of a Green Lantern fan. Then we have the live-action film, which was vomit-inducing, and the less I talk about that, the better. Then we have Hancock, starring Will Smith. That movie was okay. I had some issues with it, though. I don't think anybody came away from that movie thinking that it was solid gold. It had some problems. All the Harry Potter movies are here. Harry Potter's okay. I read each of the books once, and I've seen all of these movies at least once. I've seen some of them several times, but I don't have to see them again. I'm okay not seeing them ever again. That's kind of how I am on the Harry Potter stuff. Everyone else in my family, I think, is a bigger fan of the franchise than I am, though. Then you have both of the Hellboy movies. I love these films, and I'm really angry at Guillermo del Toro for slacking on making a third movie. Because from what I've seen, he has the idea for the third movie, but he just doesn't really want to do it. And I don't know why. He wants to do all these other movies before ever returning to Hellboy 3, if he's going to do it at all. And I'm not really happy that he's abandoned this franchise. I enjoyed those movies. I like Hellboy 2 better than Hellboy 1. And I'm kind of upset that we'll probably not get in a Hellboy 3. Then we have Heroes, Season 1. I've recently been rewatching this series and doing written reviews of each episode on another website. And I'm finding that this season does not hold up nearly as well as I thought it did. I know a lot of people will say they liked Heroes Season 1 and then the show went downhill. But I'm finding that several episodes in the series are just really pointless and only exist as filler. It's an okay series. It's not phenomenal, though. And then you've got the Highlander film. I've seen that once. I like the TV series a lot more than this movie, and I haven't seen any of the other films, so I've heard that they're just atrocious, though. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I love this film. I've only read the first book in that series of books, but this film I thought was really enjoyable. It's the one with Martin Freeman and Mos Def. There we go. If you haven't seen that film, go watch it. It's a really funny movie. Howard the Duck. This movie, it was fun, but it's not good. Especially if you're aware that George Lucas was involved. This definitely doesn't hold up to some of the other Lucas films of that era, but it's a fun little movie. I enjoyed most of it. Then we've got the Ang Lee Hulk, which I know a lot of people, comic book fans, like to really bash that film, but I enjoyed parts of it. It was at least trying to be deep and have a meaning behind it. As the Incredible Hulk right here, narratively it worked better, but I don't think it had as much meaning and depth to it as the Hulk movie with Ang Lee. Moving on, we have Hulk Versus by, I don't even know who did that. That's that animated double feature. It's Hulk versus Wolverine and Hulk versus Thor. I didn't really care for either of those, but I bought it because I do that. I buy these animated films that Marvel and DC do. iRobot. In the previous video, you saw that I bought The Chronicles of Riddick for $1. This is another one of those movies that I bought for $1. The other one that you've seen was the Fantastic Four film. So I bought 4 movies at that yard sale, and you'll see the other one later. I already talked about the Incredible Hulk. I think it's one of my favorites of the Avengerverse movies, but it's not really, I don't know why, but it just didn't grab people like Iron Man or some of the other films in that world, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. The Incredibles, my favorite Pixar movie, because I'm a superhero fan, and I also just thought it was a really good movie. This is the Indiana Jones trilogy, because at the time that my parents got this, there was no movie called Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Maybe you prefer that there never was a Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. From this trilogy, I only like Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. I did not care for Temple of Doom. I found that movie to be very unwatchable the last time I saw it. And then there's Iron Man. I know a lot of people just rant and rave about this movie being one of the greatest things ever. I thought it was good. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever. I think it's okay. But it's not one of my favorite movies or anything like that. I think I've seen the movie a grand total of 2 times. So, Joey, Season 1. You know what? This spin-off from Friends was not nearly as good as Friends itself. I know there are a lot of friends that I have who watched Friends, but they refused to watch Joey. And I liked some of Joey, but it definitely wasn't as good as Friends. Here we go. Justice League movies. 2 of them. Crisis on 2 Earths and New Frontier. Crisis on 2 Earths. I did not care for that film. I may do a video on that movie, why I didn't like it, but it was, And Justice League: The New Frontier. This movie I did enjoy. I believe when I first saw that, I had not yet read the book, DC: The New Frontier. But I since have watched the movie. I think I watched the movie like 3 times in one weekend to get all the commentaries watched and then watch the movie itself. And then I read the book quite a bit later. So I may watch that movie again someday. It's been a little while since I've seen it. Then over here we've got Kull. If you're a fan of Conan the Barbarian or just sword and sorcery barbarian stories in general, I think you might enjoy Kull. It's another one of those movies. It's not deep at all. It's just a fun little action-adventure movie. Kevin Sorbo is in it, and I really enjoyed it. Again, I didn't have high expectations for it, but going in with low expectations, I found it to be really fun. Kung Pao, Enter the Fist.
From now on, you will all call me Betty.
I love that film. Got that from my sister for my birthday or for Christmas once. This movie is hilarious. Even if you don't like kung fu movies, which I'm not a kung fu fan, this movie is just a riot. I cannot believe that this movie is as funny as it is. Like, it's startling how much it makes me laugh. Okay. The less I say about this movie, the better. This is The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, starring Sean Connery, and it's terrible. I enjoyed this movie okay whenever before I had read the comics they're based on. Now that I've read the comics, I like the first 2 comic book storylines better than this film, but I do not like this film anymore, basically. It's one of those things where once you've experienced the source material, you really can't go back, unfortunately. Then there's Lois and Clark Season 1. I've only got the first 2 seasons. Briefly, I just want to say, what a great series, Lois and Clark. It is my favorite version of Superman. I don't think it's a stretch for me to say that. There's another version that ties, but I think I like this better than all of the movies we've gotten, all of the animated movies that we've gotten, and I enjoy it better than all of the comic book stories that I've read with Superman. That may shock a lot of people, but it's true. Yes. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. The only Mad Max movie that we own, and this is the only Mad Max movie that I have seen more than once. This movie is fantastic. The epitome of all post-apocalyptic movies. If you think that you've seen the best post-apocalyptic movies and you haven't seen Mad Max, well, you haven't seen the best post-apocalyptic movies. And then, The Man Who Knew Too Little. This is, I don't think it's a stretch for me to say, the only time that Bill Murray plays a likable character. It is one of the funniest movies I have ever seen. It's not one of my favorites. I haven't seen it as much as Clue or The Burbs, but every line in this movie is hilarious. And I think every line in this movie has a double meaning of some kind. This guy right here, he comes to London where his brother lives, and his brother enrolls him in a Theater of Life program where you go around London and you're acting with other people who you have these lines and you play them out in front of people. Well, accidentally, he takes the wrong phone call at this phone booth, and he winds up taking orders from this secret branch of the government that wants to start the Cold War up again. And so for the rest of the movie, he thinks that he's acting in a play called The Theater of Life, and really he's in danger of his life, and he doesn't even know it. It is so funny. Go watch this movie. If you like Bill Murray, you will love this movie. I've got The Mask of Zorro here. I've only seen that movie, I think, twice, but it's a fun movie. When I saw it once, I don't remember where I saw it, and I thought, that's a good enough movie that I'm going to go ahead and buy it. So I did. These couple movies here, I don't own either of these, but The Master of Disguise is a pretty good children's movie. If you haven't seen it, if you have children, you can watch it. I think it's a really fun little family film. If you if you're not into family-friendly movies, then you could probably give it a skip. The Matchmaker. Oh, this is funny. Maybe one of the only 2 chick flicks that I actually like. I would call this a chick flick. I haven't seen it in years, but this is one of those movies that my mom and I will quote this movie all the time. There are 4 or 5 quotes that at least once a week we will quote this movie. It's that funny. Now, the only Matrix movie is here. I've only seen this movie, I think, 3 times, and then I've only seen all of the other Matrix movies once, including the Animatrix. I am not the kind of person who says that this movie is infallible and that the other movies ruin the franchise. I enjoyed The Matrix, but I don't think it's imperfect. It's one of those films, if you already know the premise of the movie, you're losing something right off the bat. And it's so embedded in our pop culture already that it's kind of hard to go into this movie not knowing anything about it. But it's a good movie, and I think if you haven't seen it, you should watch it, even if you do already know the premise of it. Monsters, Inc., another Pixar movie. I enjoy this one. Here they're making a prequel. I'm excited about that. Don't know if it'll be as good, but it'll be interesting at least. Ooh, both of the Mummy movies. These are good popcorn films, I find. If I'm just kind of in the mood, I don't really want to sit down and think, then I'll watch the Mummy movies, preferably the first one. And I'm going to go ahead and say I am not the kind of guy who says that, it's a good movie if you just want to turn off your brain. I'm not the kind of guy who says that, but these are those kind of movies. I think they're just really fun, they're enjoyable, fun adventure films. Muppet Treasure Island, the only Muppet movie that we own. This was one of my bread and butter movies. I grew up watching this film, and there are parts of it that I really enjoy, parts of it that will just give me goosebumps when I watch this film. And then there are parts of it that I think, wow, was that in this movie? Really? So it's another one of those fun family films, but I think if you are an adult and you have children and you want to watch this movie, you may find yourself enjoying it also. This is a good movie. I've only seen it maybe a couple of times, but it's one of those films, if you're an aspiring writer, I would suggest watching this movie. Murder 101, starring Pierce Brosnan. It's a murder mystery, but he plays a writing professor at a college, and he gives some really good advice in the movie. It's one of those things you can tell that whoever was writing this knew what they were talking about. And ever since seeing this movie, anytime I give a review of a movie, sometimes I'm thinking of what he said and didn't realize it when I was watching this movie the first time, but it's a great teaching tool if you're an aspiring writer or if you want to think about reviewing movies in a more critical fashion. It's a good movie to watch. I don't own this movie, but My Blue Heaven, it has Rick Moranis and Steve Martin. It's just a really funny movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I don't have a lot to say about it because it's been so long, but it's a fun little movie. I suggest watching it if you like those two guys. People like to say that Napoleon Dynamite was just a really dumb movie. And you know what? Fair enough. There was a lot about it that was really kind of silly. But I don't think it's a worthless movie. I think it has a really great point to it. And I think that it's a movie worth watching. It has a good moral of the story kind of thing. If you haven't seen it, I know that was popular when I was in high school. And then ever since then, it's just kind of gone unnoticed. If you haven't seen it, I say watch it. Okay, both of the National Treasure movies, those were really fun to watch in theaters, but I don't think I have watched either of these movies more than twice. I may have seen the first one twice. There's not a lot of rewatchability in them, I don't think. Maybe they are for other people, but I thought they were fun the first time. A Nero Wolfe Mystery. This series was great. It lasted 2 seasons. It stars, what's that guy's name? Maury Chaykin, who died recently, unfortunately, and Timothy Hutton. And it's a series of mysteries based on the series of novels by Rex Stout. And those novels went from the 30s to the 60s at least. And some of these episodes kind of span that time period. So it's really weird seeing an episode that's very clearly set sometime in the 1940s. And then the next episode almost is set in the 60s, but the characters haven't aged at all. And of course, Rex Stout didn't really age his characters. As he kept getting older, his characters would stay the same. So the series is trying to keep in line with that, but it's very odd watching it if you're familiar with the historical references and if you're not familiar with Rex Stout's intentions from his books. But I highly recommend that series from A&E. It was a lot of fun when I was younger. Next, Avengers. I've only seen this movie about one time. I may need to watch it again, but I enjoyed it quite a bit the first time I saw it. I may not enjoy it as much the next time I watch it. You never know. The Nightmare Before Christmas. That is another Tim Burton film that I enjoy quite a bit. The Phantom. I haven't seen that movie in years. I remember thinking it was okay, but I think I liked The Shadow better. Both movies, I kind of associate them both together, and I like The Shadow more. So we have Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one. I really enjoyed that movie, but the last time I watched it, I didn't like it as much, and I don't know why. I may have to watch that again and see what it is about it that I just didn't care for upon rewatching it. But I've seen it several times. It was just this last time that I didn't care for it. And then we have two of the Planet of the Apes movies. We have the Mark Wahlberg movie. A lot of people really hated that movie. I am not one of them. I thought it was a decent film. Not as bad as everyone lets on. I thought in a lot of ways it's superior to many of the movies that came before. A lot of people don't seem to realize this, but there were actually 5 Planet of the Apes movies before the Wahlberg film. And then there's this one, Escape from Planet of the Apes. That is the only one that I will ever own from their franchise. The others, I liked a couple of them, but for the most part, I really did not. Escape was my favorite. And then we have Planet Hulk, which I feel like is a decent adaptation of the comic book story, but I haven't read the comic in so long, I don't really remember if it took out any substantial parts of the plot, but I felt like it was a really fun, enjoyable movie. There's Police Squad, the TV series. A lot of people don't know this, but the Naked Gun movies are actually based on this television show, so that is something to keep in mind. This show is about as funny as the movies. Maybe funnier. I've only seen one of the Naked Gun movies, and I think the TV show is funnier than the one I've seen. Then we have The Prestige, which is my favorite movie directed by Christopher Nolan. This is just an astounding piece of cinema. I learn something new every time I watch this movie. Then we have the first 3 seasons of The Pretender, which I talked a lot about it a little bit earlier. I may do a video on that series someday. It's kind of a fun series to talk about. The Princess Bride by S. Morgenstern. That is my sister's favorite movie. I enjoy it quite a bit, but it is not my favorite film. The Punisher with Thomas Jane. I like this movie. I know there are a couple of Punisher fans that I know who really hate this film, but I enjoy it, maybe partly because I'm not a Punisher fan, but I just found it to be really enjoyable. Next, we have Push. Oh, boy, do I love this movie. I know several people who make fun of this film, and I don't really understand why. I enjoyed it. There's just one or two gripes about the movie that I have, but I don't think it deserves the hate that I've been seeing it get. And here we have Quick Change. This would be the other movie that Bill Murray was in that I think he is a likable character in. This and The Man Who Knew Too Little. And this movie is astoundingly awesome. A very funny movie. If you haven't seen it, watch it. The Road to El Dorado. This is by DreamWorks. I enjoy this movie okay, but it's not one of those that I really loved a whole lot. I thought there were some funny moments in it, but it's pretty much hit or miss for me. It's okay, but I don't have to see it again anytime soon. We have The Rocketeer. I like this movie a lot. I haven't read any of the comic books that this film is based on, but just watching this film, I find this to be a very enjoyable movie. That guy was in the television show The 4400, believe it or not. Samurai Jack, that's the animated movie that kicked off the television show. When I watched this movie a little while back, I thought it was enjoyable, but it had some problems. So maybe I'll do a video on it someday. Serenity. Fantastic movie. But if you haven't seen Firefly, I would recommend watch Firefly. And basically, I already discussed Firefly in an earlier video, so I won't discuss Serenity here. 7. Boy, I love this movie. It's a little depressing, and when I say a little, I mean a lot. Enough, when I watch this movie, I like to pretend that it's set in Gotham City, and I like to pretend that Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman's characters are actually part of the GCPD. Just a weird little thing about me that you probably didn't know. The Shadow, I find, is a very fun movie. It's a nice period piece. If you enjoy the 1920s and 30s, you'll probably enjoy this movie. It's Alec Baldwin before his 30 Rock era, where he gained quite a bit of weight, more so than here. It's just really fun. Again, The Shadow is one of those characters. I've not read any of the source material, but I enjoyed this movie, and it's one that I've watched since I was a youngster. The only other movie on this shelf that I'll be talking about is Shanghai Noon. Did you know that this movie, starring Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan, it is made by the guys who made Smallville? Alfred Gough and Miles Millar. You can see it right there. In a way, it kind of reminds me of a superhero film. Shanghai Noon does. It follows some of the same format that a superhero movie would follow. It just doesn't have any superpowers. Most superhero movies, I find that the romantic subplot is really badly done. And in this movie, it was also badly done. So, it's an enjoyable movie, but if you haven't seen it by now, I don't know if you would really want to. It's, a Western with Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson. That's basically sums it up. Now, I am done talking about this shelf. I will talk about the next shelf in a later video.